Let's talk about jury trials and whether or not you'd actually be, well, even allowed to have one if you were accused of, frankly, some very, very serious crimes. Let's talk to Mark Stevens. He's a human rights lawyer and joins us. Very, very good morning to you, Mark.
Morning. Nice to be with you.
I'd like to point out to everyone, you're one of the good human rights lawyers. We don't genuinely like them on this show, but we love you, an old friend of the show. This is as a result of a review led by Sir Brian Leveson, a former appeal court judge, him of the Leveson inquiry over phone hacking. And he has basically said we should actually have a whole load of offences, 220 of them, where people should no longer have an automatic right to be tried by a jury of their peers. Instead, there'll be a new division of the Crown Court where a judge and two magistrates would sit with the jury to rule on some offences. Also, just the right to actually have a jury at all. It would just be a judge. And these would include offences like assault of a police officer, stalking, sex assaults, dealing or importing drugs, child abduction, violent disorder, assault causing actual bodily harm, ABH, sex with a child under 13, burglary, firearms and knife possession and fraud. I was under the illusion that being tried by, 12 of your peers was the absolute cornerstone of our justice system. This isn't being done for littering or a parking offence. These are serious crimes. How on earth can we take away the right to a jury trial from them?
Well, I think we've always accepted that some cases needed to not go to a full jury. So, as you say, the more minor criminal offences have always been tried in magistrates. And of course, magistrates originally were people's peers, albeit usually their betters. And now we're thinking of having, we've got too many people going through the system. And part of this is being driven by the fact that lawyers always say, if you've got the chance to go for a jury trial, go for the jury trial because you're more likely to get off. Yeah. And so as a consequence, the cases that were being dealt with optionally in the magistrates' court are no longer being dealt with there. They're going up. And
so we've actually had an increase in the number of people opting for jury trial. But am I not right in thinking, having done jury service a couple of years ago, and the court clerk said, look, an awful lot of people have pleaded not guilty the whole way through, but today she actually said today they've suddenly remembered they're guilty on the day of the show. Is there actually an argument that actually we just need to say that there's not going to be a benefit to getting time off any possible sentence if you plead guilty at that late date, so we can stop all of that faffing and delay and extra cost?
Yeah, so Sir Brian has brought in this idea that people should get 40% off their sentence if they're pleading guilty earlier. And that's the idea, is to give them, where they know they're banged to rights, essentially an opportunity to do a lesser term. But we have to look at these reforms in the whole, in the round. So clearly they're designed to process people more quickly, but perhaps more significantly to put more people into the community. And of course, our probation service isn't being dealt with. It's not getting more funds, yet they are going to have to deal with more people. And of course, in prison, we're still not doing rehabilitation. It's a golden opportunity to teach people a trade, whether it's plumbing, woodwork, whatever it happens to be. We've got a couple of prisons that teach people to be chefs, and that has been an enormous success. But otherwise, prison is nothing more than an educationship, an apprenticeship for a life of crime.
Yeah, and we've had the HM inspector of prisons only yesterday pointing out people 22 hours sitting in a cell on drugs, watching daytime telly. Hello to my viewers. But you're welcome for wherever you're watching. But the thing is, we've got this failure across the board. We've got a failure in the policing service, in the courts, long delays, police and CPS, and in the courts, and then in prison, and then in probation. But all of this stems from massive underfunding for years. And of course, there was a big delay in the courts before lockdown, and then of course that meant even worse because they couldn't have they thought they couldn't have jury trials on the same basis. They needed bigger courts for this nonsense spacing. But we have got ourselves into a situation where you could be a victim of rape, you could be accused of rape and be an innocent man, and you wait 3 years before you get justice in whichever direction. But we've always thought, haven't we, justice delayed is justice denied. So we need to do something. But is taking away the right to a jury the answer, when we know that, looking at cases like Southport, people who've pleaded guilty, still are behind bars, like Lucy Connolly, people who pleaded not guilty to very similar offences, go to a jury, the jury are letting them off because they're making a different judgment from the great and the good who are judges?
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think there's one other factor that we have to factor in here, as it were, because successive governments of whatever political hue have become tougher and tougher on crime, really, since the Blair government.
With longer sentences.
With longer sentences.
But then, wait a minute, they've got longer sentences, but then you get let off 40% of it or 30%
yeah,
of it.
but of course we're filling the jails up with those people who are found guilty, and as a consequence of that, they're serving longer. So if you look at our sentences compared to Western Europe, for example, they're probably double the length that they are in Western Europe. So there's a question.
But people don't serve that full sentence or anything like it.
No. I mean, the comparative is the service time that you're in. But there is a real issue here, which is that people go into jail, they learn why it was that they got nicked, how not to get nicked next time, and then they go out and commit more crimes. We're not training people to come out into to jobs or anything of that kind, and I think that's the real problem. But we are going to see juries, I think, continue to let people off at the traditional rates, but I think we're also going to see the sentences and the guilties go up with judge-alone trials or judges and magistrates. They're notorious for finding people guilty.
But again, but my thing about this is, if you're accused of something as serious as a sex assault, child abduction, actual bodily harm, possessing an and you're an innocent man or an innocent woman, you should have a right to be tried by your peers. Your life, for a lot of these crimes, sex with a child under 13, causing death by careless or inconsiderate driving, we are talking about people losing their jobs, their homes, their marriages, their reputations. We've just had, the post office scandal, people who went to prison, people accused of these crimes of theft which they had not committed. These damage people's lives. People should have a right to make sure they're their best opportunity to be found innocent if they are innocent. And it should always be about, that's the rule, isn't it? Let 10 guilty men go free, one innocent man isn't wrongly convicted.
Yeah, I think that's right. You're in very grave danger of taking a human rights position, Julia.
No, a justice position. I think justice costs money. Justice costs money. We should spend more.
Together. Yeah, I think this is where we come together, because actually I do think juries are fundamental, and often where you may have committed an offence technically, the jury uses its enormous good sense to say, actually, there was obviously extenuating circumstances. Let them off. There's no point in us paying for them to go to jail.
And they're seeing it. They're making a judgment again, which was why we brought this system in the first place. I think we're in very dangerous territory on this. I really do. Mark Stevens, one of the good human rights lawyers. Thank you very, very, very much indeed.